It's Wednesday. It's March 22nd, 2023. Over the last couple of days, Monday and Tuesday, I was watching one of the Harry Potters, and I was cross-referencing it with this first in the series, the Divergent series. This morning, I started watching the second movie in the series called Insurgent. I've watched it before. I don't think it struck the same chord with me the first time. The beginning of Insurgency really frightens me from where I am at the moment. With how they're playing off these words that I looked up, the adjectives of one being erudite as an adjective, what abdication means, which I had no idea. On Google, on my Google, in MaxiPad, internet of my Google that I have access to, it mentioned something about Edward VIII, but not in any great detail. And then that led me to King Lear in William Shakespeare, and not knowing any great detail about that either. The synopsis reads in a very I have no connection to any of this necessarily. It reads William Shakespeare. Then it has that King Lear of Britain had 2 daughters, where he tried to divide his land and power with 2 daughters, and then they slowly went insane. Frightening nonetheless. However, that is in reference in some written English literature that I don't have any great wealth of knowledge on, just this synopsis. And then this morning I also went on a Zoom call for, they call it Bible study again. I don't really have the correct, I don't know. So they read a passage about John. In the passage, it says, and I made reference to how it relates to me, is that for clock purposes, in the passage of John, it said, show me so I may believe. So I said cosmically again, clocks being symmetric. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities of clocks, which takes arguments off kilter. But when you have a symmetrical clock, things just, the way that I describe it is if, linguistically, if you take infinity and collapse it to a finite into a definition, and then you add some affinity, those are the 4 words to describe my relationship to my, all of my sons are important to me, but this one, if all of time and space disappears, I know how to anchor myself in a reality and to my son and to have purpose. So there's that. And how to spatially explain our reason in humanity, just at the most basic of level. So I'm watching this candor, this erudite, and then these relationship pieces, not all that I'm cognitively aware of, but I had said to the Zoom callers, I had said as my place in space and time here, I just, when they talk about this insane daughter of King Lear, that's almost how I feel watching the media, watching some of the epithets or some of the movies from Hollywood that have come out, and trying to anchor oneself in, I mean, now that this happened this way, what am I to do? So there's a piece of this Divergent movie which really frightens me about this erudite, where they're looking for these divergent pieces. So I suppose if, God forbid, an argument broke out from pixelate clocks, like pixel clocks, where there's symmetry between a mother and son, perhaps, it may not be symmetrical. It may be asymmetrical or atypical of what is definable as an anchor for space and time in a science project that's not spoken of. There is a discernible way between the pixels of symmetry. There has to be a categorization and a discernment. And so, for which I have, I was created with and for. And so I'm watching as this erudite, which may exist in somebody's, I don't know, do you call them pension plans or pharmaceutical plans, or I don't even know the words for this level of, has access to this level of technology where they're testing out really frightening science knowledge and experimenting and trying to hide behind some cloak of, I don't know if it would be nobility or whatever. So all of these things frighten me. And I'm watching it, and she's looking for these divergent pieces. Now, if divergence in divergent boundary is these symmetrical pieces, as opposed to the atypical or asymmetrical pieces, in the way the world's created and how the world moves forward, it frightens me to know that there may be some crazy mad scientist somewhere that has access to this other world technology that I don't have in this world where I am, and maybe trying to study this in some manner that may have actually harmed my real position in the real world and kept me at this level, or had me go through experiences like trying to commit me as insane, which has also happened, along with being hunted and stuck with needles full of, I had to explain to the cognitive therapist the other day, I'm like, you don't understand. I was like, I was just sitting in public having a conversation and something hit me from behind under my rib cage. I was like, and then it gets really fuzzy as to what happens. How do you report, and to whom do you report that level of crime? Especially when there was somebody at the bar where I went up. They wanted me to, the person I was sitting with said they wanted me to go tell whoever I walked in the building with, which I did. And the person I was sitting with, who I don't even know their name, when I got hit, said that he would make a mark on my file, or he would make a notation on my file, whatever that meant. I mean, what do these things mean to humans? I mean, it's really frightening being the only one, and there's some larger fight potentially going on in categories of humans that I don't know their names. I don't know what industry they're in. I don't know what I'm up against, but yet I'm here and I'm being affected. And this has been a long time, and yet my position never seems to get to anywhere that I want to be. And yet there's these scientists at like mad scientist level that have this opportunity to study in like, I don't know, do you say this is like a NASA agency level? I mean, is there anything higher than NASA? I don't really know. I mean, like NASA just recently, they have a location, a physical brick and mortar. They're about as high up on the scale of aeronautics that I've ever heard of. I don't know if there's anything that exists higher than them. I mean, again, the teachings of the children when they arrived were really subpar. So this is
I've gone through this many, many times when you're going through. I know.
Now, what I find really interesting symbolically is this. On the placenta, it looks very much, the placenta, the blood supply from the placenta to a fetus looks very much like that when a woman births a child, if the placenta comes out intact. I've also heard it referred to as tree of life. Yggdrasil was another one I just learned by accident as a cross-reference to something else. And then they have here this holding of hands. But what is more concerning is this Janine figure, which I don't really know a Janine necessarily, not dressed in this manner that has this level of technology to study clocks, biological or otherwise.
Ma'am, the Divergent's vitals are dropping. If we don't pull her out of the sim soon, we'll lose it.
You'll stop when I say so?
There was an incident when I was taken in the ambulance, again, not of my free will. They just showed up at the house. I don't know if it had interior household gas change, since there's a gas stove and I don't know the chemistry of the gas and what leaks out into the house. But they sent somebody one night, and then they drove me to one of the local hospitals, the Lowenstein Hospital. Interestingly enough, when Romer called himself a baron before he got kicked out of Germany and sent here, they said their real last name was Lowenstein. But they took me from this residence and put me in that residence, and I was literally like curled up in a ball in a fetus, and it felt like there was a control panel room with people staring like this through the window in some observation. I had no idea why I was being taken there. I had no idea what kind of gas they administered. But it is a real concern. And then they held me against my will for like, I think a week for more observation, for which I wouldn't take any medication. I don't want to take medication, but yet between the gases and like this hallucinogenic through the fumigation machines in the area and in whatever gas they're piping up through the streets, it's really disgusting. And what it felt like was as if somebody was connected to if my body is an instrument and a receiving antenna. It was almost like somebody from movie, film, video game world that has some vendetta to prove, some kind of hatred of me for reasons I have no idea. It's as if they created in that moment some simulation that they wanted to broadcast to prove to I don't know what, a disgusting scientist level. And then they connected it to my biological through the gate that I created with my son. I'm not clear. I don't know. And they set me up in some hospital without my permission. And then they connected this, I've heard them refer to it as ZUP, Z-U-P, where it's some kind of like seeded memory or some kind of cognitive creation. And then they connect it, like almost like connecting a computer terminal to some server elsewhere, through some, doesn't have to be a direct, just like Bluetooth works. It's along the same lines. And then it's like this whole scenario played out while I was there, and I couldn't make it stop. There was no making it stop. Eventually it stopped. But this is like psychological. This is torture. This is not okay behavior of any government or authority against a person. But yet it happened here, and it exists.
Divergent test subject 6 is no longer viable.
All right, shut it down. Wasting our time. I've been assuming that all divergents are the same. Some are much stronger than others.
All clocks are not the same. Some have symmetry. Some clock connections are stronger, and they're considered anchors between this world and the next, for certain.
Assign all non-essential personnel to the Divergent detail. We need to look harder. We need to find that very special one.
And then if you are that special one and you keep waking up like this, why are these other scientists allowed to study it, allowed to know it, and allowed to manipulate it, while you yourself are the special relation in space and time, and yet you have no access to it, and you have no way of protecting yourself from these potentials? It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.